Welcome to the Mayor's Report. I'm Northampton Mayor David Narkowitz, and this is my monthly television show on Northampton Community Television, in which I try to report to you on some of the issues and projects that I'm working on here in the city of Northampton. Today we're actually filming on location at 94 Pleasant Street, which is the new office of the new U.S. Congressman for Northampton and the 2nd Congressional District, James McGovern. And we have a special guest on this month's episode because we're going to have a chance to sit down with Congressman McGovern, get to know a little bit about him and his new district and some of the issues that he's working on in the Congress. So welcome, and let's go talk to Congressman McGovern. We're really pleased and honored to be joined on the Mayor's Report today by Congressman Jim McGovern. Welcome, Congressman.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. And we're, as I said at the outset, we're especially pleased to be reporting from your new congressional office located in the heart of downtown Northampton.
That's right. I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled about this location, and I want to be accessible. So that's why I opened up an office here in Northampton, and I hope people will come by and visit.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about your background, about yourself and your career, and just introduce yourself.
I was born and raised in Worcester. My parents own a package store, and they're small business people. I went to college at American University in Washington. I got a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in public administration. And I worked my way through college working in the office of George McGovern, no relation, but one of my heroes. And that time working for him, we became close friends, and he became one of my best friends. And I used to call him every week until he passed away in October. But before he died, he asked me to do the eulogy at his funeral. So he was a great teacher. Then I went to work for Congressman Joe Moakley of South Boston. And I worked on everything from trying to track down Mrs. O'Leary's lost Social Security check to economic development projects, and then to, I investigated the murders of 6 Jesuit priests and 2 women in El Salvador back in 1989. And then I decided I was one night I decided I was going to run for Congress. I was going to come home from Washington, go back to Worcester and run for Congress. And in 1994 I tried to do that. There was a Republican who had the seat, a guy named Peter Blute, and there was like a crowded primary with 8 or 9 Democrats, and I did a good job, but I came in second. Mm-hmm. And I decided to run again in 1996, and lightning struck. I won. Mm-hmm. Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House then. One of my slogans was, if you wouldn't vote for Newt, why would you vote for Blute? Mm-hmm. But it worked, and I won. And ever since then, I've been able to have the privilege of serving the people of Massachusetts in Congress. I'm on the House Rules Committee, which is the traffic cop of Congress. Every bill comes before my committee before it goes to the floor. We determine how it will be debated, whether it can be amended. Sometimes we write the bills in the Rules Committee. My old boss, Joe Moakley, was on the Rules Committee.
Longtime chair.
And the chairman. And before he died, he wanted me to go on the Rules Committee. And before Moakley was on the Rules Committee, Tip O'Neill was on the Rules Committee. Mm-hmm. I'm also, I have a waiver to also be on the Agriculture Committee, in part because I care deeply about hunger and nutrition issues. And my old district was primarily urban, and hunger and food insecurity was a big issue. Now I have a lot of agricultural rural areas. Hunger is still an issue in food insecurity, but the possibility of trying to develop a plan to deal with hunger and to promote better nutrition is all the more real here. It seems like there's lots of ideas, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So, I have focused on issues of economic development, human rights. I co-chair the Human Rights Commission in Congress. I also co-chair the House Hunger Caucus. So, I'm active in a lot of different areas, but I will tell you this, I am really excited about being here in Northampton, about representing the new 2nd Congressional District. I know I have some big shoes to fill. John Olver was here before me, did an incredible job, and I hope that I can live up to his standard, and I'm looking forward to getting to know people.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because people, we just went through a redistricting in the state, and so the 1st and 2nd districts kind of got compressed together, and Northampton, which had been in the 2nd Congressional District, got put with some 1st Congressional District towns, and then we kind of went east to Worcester,
Right.
which is how, and now you were in the 3rd District, now it's the 2nd District.
Yeah, my district was changed more than any other congressional district, and 60% of it is new. So, you know, I'm still trying to get to know all the communities. It's kind of like drinking water from a fire hose. There's so many different concerns in so many different places. I went from 28 cities and towns to 63. And again, I mean, John Olver represented this area well. Richie Neal did as well. So I want to make sure that I keep up with their constituent service. But look, I'm an activist. I mean, I'm somebody who really, wants to roll up his sleeves and get things done. And I tell mayors and town managers and boards of selectmen, help me figure out what I can do. I want to create things. I want to create ladders of opportunity for people so they can succeed. I'm interested in affordable housing. I'm interested in making sure small businesses can thrive, and funneling federal monies to help promote economic development and create more jobs. Those are the things I care about. And agriculture, food, and healthcare have been issues that I've been concerned about. So this is a very new district, and I'm still getting to know everybody. But I will tell you, it's been a real joy to explore these new cities and towns, and I've loved every minute of it. Some of those beautiful parts of the state are here, and Northampton is a special place. I mean, I love the restaurants, I love the stores, I love the fact that people take their politics seriously, and they question you on issues not only of local concern and not only of national concern, but sometimes of international concern. And what I love about this community in particular is that people take their citizenship seriously. And I think we all should. So it's really kind of fun to be here in Northampton.
Well, we're excited to have you as our new representative, and especially pleased that you have an office here, because I do think it'll help the folks that are in the western part of your district have access to.
We're at 93 Pleasant Street, right?
94.
94.
94.
I'm still getting to know it. 94 Pleasant Street.
94 Pleasant Street, right across from the Chamber of Commerce, right.
And my 2 staff people here are Natalie Blaze and Keith Barnacle, both who work for John Olver. A lot of people in this area know who they are. They're great people, and so I'm thrilled that they're staying on with me. And I plan to be here a lot, so
that's great.
It'll be fun.
Well, I plan to call you when we need some help here in Northampton. Let's talk about some issues. You and I were just in Worcester together. I was honored you invited me to participate in a roundtable discussion about violence, gun violence in particular. And I know that that's been an issue that I've heard a lot from my constituents about, particularly in the wake of the Newtown shooting. And obviously we've had a string of these mass shootings. And I think, it sort of crystallized, I think, a moment in time for people that this is a time we really need to act, and I know you've been a leader on it. So talk about that effort in Congress.
Yeah, well, I thank you for your leadership with the mayors. It's very, very important, and thanks for coming out to Worcester. Look, gun violence in our country is a real problem. Every day someone dies of gun violence. It's not just these isolated instances like Newtown and Aurora. I mean, they happen all the time. My colleague Gabby Giffords, who I served with, was shot during a town meeting. Her replacement is now Congressman Ron Barber, who used to work for her, who was shot as well during that terrible tragedy in Tucson. So, I think that people in this country, most people, think enough is enough. We need to have some reasonable gun control and gun safety laws in place. People don't need to walk around with a military-style assault weapon, or a weapon with a magazine with 40, 50, 60 rounds. These are weapons of war. They don't belong on the streets of our country. And unfortunately, they're easy to obtain here. I made the point this morning that it's sad that we live in a country where it's easier to get a gun than it is to vote. Look, I respect the rights of hunters and sportsmen and people who want to think they need a gun to defend their homes. Their legal right to own a gun. We're not going after that. We're going after these weapons that are being used to kill people on our streets, in our cities, in our rural areas, all over this country, and to protect our children and to protect our citizens. So, banning military-style assault weapons, universal background checks, banning assault magazines, also addressing issues of mental health and ways we can provide more support to our schools and to our communities to deal with some of the challenges that our young people face. But Congress ought to vote on this stuff, and one of my biggest worries is that the Republican leadership will not allow a vote because they don't want to have their members being put in a tough spot. Well, people ought to know where their Congress people are on this issue of gun safety and gun control, and I'm going to keep on pushing until we get a vote.
Well, we appreciate your leadership on the issue, and I know mayors across the country have kind of come together and have tried to be a voice to Congress about let's finally put together a plan and let's vote on it. Let's have a vote so we can try to implement these, which are in many cases common sense measures.
On this issue of gun control and gun safety, the American people are way ahead of Congress. Unfortunately, on a lot of issues, the American people are way ahead of Congress. So, what I always tell people is that you ought to let your views be known. You ought to put the pressure on the members of Congress to do the right thing, and this is one of those areas where I hope there's a lot of pressure brought to bear.
Another issue I know you're passionate about is hunger, and I've had a chance to see you in action. We were actually in Charlotte together, and I had a chance to attend a film premiere that you've been involved in, and it actually has a great tie-in to this area, to this valley, because we've really had an emphasis on local food and local farming and nutrition, and including trying to make sure that people who are low income have access to fresh food and fresh local food. We've been working on trying to double the SNAP program for people who come to our farmers markets, et cetera. So talk about some of the challenges in terms of hunger and the things you're working on in the Congress.
Well, first of all, hunger is another problem in this country. There are millions of people in the United States of America, the richest country on the planet, that are hungry. They don't have enough to eat. That to me is a national scandal. And we can solve this problem. This is solvable. It's a political condition. We have the food, we have the infrastructure, we have everything, but the political will to try to end this. I personally believe that food is a right. Everybody ought to have food, not only in this country but around the world. It should be a right, a fundamental right. And and as we are trying to address this issue, I've been trying to get the White House to do a White House conference on food and nutrition because we need a plan. We don't have a plan. So you get food banks doing their thing, you get the different agencies doing their thing, and cities are doing their thing, but we need to connect all these dots and all these initiatives so that we are doing it smarter and better, and we get it right, and we end hunger. There's been an attempt to cut back on SNAP in Congress on a number of occasions. I have led the effort against that. I lived on a food stamp diet for a week a few years ago to dramatize the fact that the average food stamp benefit back then was only $3 a day. And nobody knew that. There's this misperception out there that if you're on SNAP or food stamps, like you hit the lottery. I mean, it's like, great, everybody's dream is to be on food stamps. It's tough to be on food stamps. It's tough to be poor in this country. It's tough to be poor and get access to nutritious foods. So here in the Pioneer Valley, I mean, and there's a whole area, I mean, you have this great resource of all these farms. And there's a proliferation of farmers markets. You can use your SNAP benefit at farmers markets. You can use WIC benefits at farmers markets. And you have access to good, fresh, locally grown food. You're supporting local agriculture, but you're also eating well. My grandmother used to say to me, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It used to drive me nuts, but she was right. Food is medicine. And so as we combat hunger, it's not just about giving people anything, it used to be when you went to give somebody the food bank, take all the junk in your pantry that you don't want, that fluffernutter and every other kind of sugary thing, and just throw it in a bag and bring it to the food bank. Things have changed. Food banks and the whole approach to combating hunger is also about giving you nutritious food because it's a health issue. I'll just say this. Some people say we can't afford to invest any more in these anti-poverty, anti-hunger programs. My response is we can't afford to not do anything, because there's a cost to hunger. You got avoidable health care costs. Kids who end up in hospitals because their immune system is so compromised, they get a common cold, they're in the hospital for days. Elderly people who take their medicine on an empty stomach when the bottle says take it with a meal, but they can't afford the meal and their medication. This is all painful for these individuals. It also costs us a great deal. Lost productivity. Hungry kids don't learn in school. So, I want to end hunger. I believe we can end hunger. This is not a bleeding heart liberal, kumbaya kind of notion. This is hard-headed realism. We need to combat this problem. We need to end it, and we should be the example for the rest of the world.
Definitely, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. Economic development, I know you mentioned that. It's certainly something that we're trying to focus on here in the city. It's trying to make the kinds of investments in our city that's going to grow our local economy. It's going to promote new business,
Right.
and for us at the local level, it's critical because really in Massachusetts, the only way, because of Proposition 2.5, to really grow our tax base is to try to make sure we have a strong and robust commercial sector so that we're not putting so much of the burden on local residential taxpayers. Right. And I know the federal government is going through a fairly critical budget discussion right now, and we're concerned about programs like Community Development Block Grant, which has been cut. Right. Used to be a bipartisan program, but it seems like in recent years it's been cut severely in Northampton, about 30%. And other federal programs, EDA, things like that invest in these kinds of things.
All very helpful to a lot of the things that you've done here in Northampton. Look, there's a nuttiness going on in Washington right now where people think that the only issue that matters is the deficit and the debt. Well, the deficit and the debt are important issues, no doubt about it. But it's not the only issue out there. And so how do you reduce the deficit and the debt? I mean, the Republicans are saying just take a meat axe and cut everything. Mm-hmm. You do that. There's a cost. Cuts in community development block grant monies, which you can't then put into your city, in your towns. You've got cuts in, EDA monies that are designed to help, spur economic development and to help create partnerships so that you can have businesses grow. I mean, a whole range of programs would be annihilated if the Republican leadership got its way. My feeling is that some of it is about cutting waste, and there is some waste. Let's go after that, and included in that waste is the defense budget. I mean, for the life of me, I don't know why the hell we have military bases in Europe, that we put there after World War II, to protect Europe against, enemies like Soviet Union. They're all gone. Mm-hmm. They're all gone. Why are we doing that? Why do we need some nuclear weapons to destroy the world? 50 times over. Maybe we could lower our stockpiles so we could only destroy the world 25 times over. I mean, I think you only need to destroy it once, but there's savings there. So we need to look at that. But the other part of it is revenue and making sure that everybody pays their fair share, closing loopholes where corporations can get benefits by moving operations overseas. I mean, we can close a lot of those things and have everybody kind of pay their fair share. But then there's another part of this, which is investment. I mean, this economy cannot grow without investment. Roads, bridges, infrastructure, rail. I go right down the list of all the different transportation projects that need to be supported. Cleaning up our environment, brownfields cleanup. I mean, monies to help reconfigure buildings so they can be useful for businesses again. By spending money on that, you may increase the deficit a little bit in the short term, but the job creation in the long term will allow you to pay down your deficit and start paying down your debt. That's what Bill Clinton did.
I was just thinking of that.
Bill Clinton helped, kind of get rid of the deficit entirely through job growth.
We grew our way out of the deficit.
And that's, to me, a better way to do it. I mean, the Republicans are talking about cutting monies for the National Institutes of Health. I mean, what does the National Institute of Health do? They try to do research to find cures to diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and diabetes and you name it. So if you cut back on them, the day we're going to find a cure moves further on down the road. But if you found a cure to Alzheimer's, not only would you prevent a lot of human suffering, but the money you would save would make sure that Medicaid would have no other financial problems. So we need to talk about this holistically. It's not just the deficit and the debt. We have to address a whole range of issues. Education. Some of the greatest colleges and universities in the world are in this area here. We want to make sure everybody gets the best education they could possibly get. Why? Not just because we're nice people. We want to invest in education for people so that they can contribute to our society. They can make our country stronger. We want the best and the brightest to be here in the United States. So, I think what's happening in Washington is the whole approach is all messed up. And, we're going to have to try to get through this Congress doing as little damage as possible. But my hope is in the next election, there'll be, a correction made, that people will understand that this policy of austerity is a bad policy, and that we need to, in addition to cut and raise revenue, we need to invest.
Definitely. Well, certainly that's what we're looking for here at the local level, because we've made, we have limited ability to make those kinds of investments, and we've relied on our state and federal government to help us return our tax dollars back to us to make those investments in our communities. So we appreciate that. Healthcare, I know, is another fairly significant issue. I know it affects many businesses. It affects certainly municipal government in terms of our ability to carry out the services. Obviously, President Obama put forth, and we were able to pass and survived a Supreme Court challenge, the Affordable Health Care Act. Where do you see healthcare moving forward in terms of how that new law is implemented?
Well, I think the Affordable Health Care Act is the first step. And so what Congress needs to do is we need to perfect it, because it's not perfect. And we need to build on it. We need to find ways to, control medical inflation, which, is one of the problems that we're having, in terms of keeping Medicare solvent and Medicaid. We need to, reward best practices. And so this is still a work in progress. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have expanded Medicare, to include children and everybody. A kind of almost a single payer type of system. But that's not the way we're going right now, and I understand that because we didn't have the votes. But we need to make sure that this healthcare law works, and that requires, a little bit more tweaking. And my sense is that that tweaking probably won't happen for another year or so, because we have still people who want to repeal the whole thing. But it is encouraging to me to see that even states led by Republican governors who were against this are now opting into the
Florida recently.
And so, I think that's a good sign. But, we still have a lot of work to do on healthcare.
Definitely.
And look, at my big push in healthcare goes back to my stuff on hunger and nutrition. We ought to be talking about prevention. Cuba has a better infant mortality rate than the United States of America. Now, if I need a major open heart surgery, I'd want to have it done here in the United States and not in Cuba. But the point of the matter is, we need to do a better job of keeping people from getting to the point where they need open heart surgery. Where, we need to keep people healthy enough so we can hopefully avoid them getting diabetes. So, we need to focus a lot more on prevention in this country, not just on treatment of major catastrophes that happen to your body, but how do we get you so that you can be healthy for most of your life? It's good for you, it's good for me, it's cheaper for us too. So that's the other focus we need to take on healthcare. But that's where the nutrition stuff plays a role as well.
Definitely. Turning a little bit just on the international front, I know you mentioned some of your earlier work on issues, international issues. Give us your take a little bit on the world and where we're headed. I know we just, our Senator John Kerry just became Secretary of State, which was an exciting moment for the Commonwealth. And we now I think we have a new Defense Secretary. I'm not sure if they've let him come for a vote, but we still have, we still have a lot of issues on the world stage that we need to deal with as a country.
Yeah, I mean, I co-chair the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission in Congress, so human rights is very important to me. I think that if the United States stands for anything, we ought to stand out loud and foursquare for human rights. I'm thrilled that John Kerry's going to be Secretary of State. I want human rights to be more a focus, and to have us being more vocal in terms of defending human rights defenders around the world. The world's a troubled place, there's no question. But I'm a believer that we ought to be focused more on ways to bring people together, to try to bridge people's differences, rather than constantly rattling the sabers and talking about military invasions and wars. I'm tired of wars. I don't want any more wars. I think we've lost too many lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, and when you talk about our debt, close to $2 trillion of it is that unpaid for war costs. So I'm hoping that John Kerry will lead the world to a more peaceful and tolerant place, and away from this kind of militaristic, macho foreign policy where we just threaten everybody with invasion when we have a disagreement. War should be obsolete, and I hope that Kerry can play a role in making this world more peaceful.
Yes, indeed. I second that. And I want to thank you for making time in your busy schedule
My pleasure.
to sit down with me and have a chance to say hello to the residents of Northampton. And again, we're really excited about this new office opening in Northampton. And we're going to put some information up on the screen at the end so they'll know where the address and phone number is. And you have 2 other district offices.
I do. I have one in Leominster and one in Worcester. But when I came out here, I promised people that I would have a presence here.
I think the first time you called me on the phone, I think about the second word out of my mouth was,
I
"Are
think
you going to open an office in Northampton?"
So I delivered.
Thank you. We appreciate
We have
that.
an office in Northampton, and I love it.
Yeah, well, we look forward to working with you, and again, thank you for being on the Mayor's
Thanks.
Report, and thank you to everybody for tuning in this month to the Mayor's Report, and look forward to our next episode when we'll go out and around the city and talk about other issues of importance to the residents. Thank you.